Okay, we are officially live, and we're going to give everybody just a second here to funnel into the room. And quickly, I'll just introduce myself. I'm Josh Amster. I'm the Senior Vice President of Fundraising here at Start Engine, and we've got two very special guests with us today. I'm sure many of you will recognize the famous Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful. Kevin, thanks for joining us this morning.
Great to be here. Thank you.
And then we have Isaac Hayes III. Isaac is the founder and CEO of Fanbase, who is the company that we are going to be focusing on for today's conversation. So, Isaac, thank you for joining us as well.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So great. So today's conversation, we're going to go into a few different topics related to Fanbase and the social media industry as a whole. We are going to take some questions as well. So if you're in the audience, please feel free to submit questions to our team. We'll make sure to get to as many of those as we can during the course of our conversation. But I thought first, as just a starting point, Isaac, if you don't mind just talking to us about Fanbase and why you started Fanbase and what it does, and then we can go from there.
Yeah, well, Fanbase is a next-gen social media platform that allows any person to monetize from day one. It has 6 content verticals, which are just posting stories live, long-form content, audio chat rooms, and short-form content like what you would think Reels and TikTok videos are. And it's monetized for every single person on the planet. I wanted to remove the barriers that creators have to monetize content, and I wanted to create something that did not suppress the visibility and reach of people that use social media just based on the fact that sometimes advertising gets in the way and limits the reach of creators online. I saw a creator go viral. I felt like we needed something that allowed any person on the planet to become a content creator, either by intention or by just using the platform and discovering that ability. So we started with in-app purchase peer-to-peer subscription. So Fanbase was the first app that actually allowed another human being to subscribe to another human being using in-app purchase capability, not a credit card, but in-app purchase. So before then, you would have to use a credit card, or you could only subscribe to platforms like Spotify, Netflix. But I wanted that the ability to turn everybody basically into their own on-demand stream service. And so that's what Fanbase is about.
Great. And so Fanbase right now has a reggae offering that is live on the platform on Start Engine. And as I mentioned, the company's raised just over $9.5 million in the current reggae offering, but a lot more in crowdfunding previously. I know, I think more than $8 million in prior regulation CF offerings. So in total, between everything, over $17 million in crowdfunding. So Isaac, what is it about crowdfunding that has attracted you to it, and why have you been so successful within it?
Well, a couple things. It was a necessity at the time because we were kind of in COVID. We weren't able to move, but I also think that having a product already built, like we already had an MVP, I'd already paid for the platform to exist and spent money building an MVP. And so I feel like when you're raising capital, and people have something that's tangible and they can use and assess for themselves to decide if they want to invest their money in it, it's good. And I always say nothing speaks better for Fanbase than the product itself. It's not me, it's the amazing people that built the platform that continue to do that. And I know people invest in founders, but I also think that Fanbase speaks for itself when you actually use the platform. And it also builds in a community of people that want to help support and build something. Typically, offerings like this in early stage tech companies are available to accredited investors, angels, high net worth individuals. And so allowing people to have a shot to invest in a tech startup, which can scale, pretty large, I think is enticing for people because a lot of people never get a shot at this type of situation. And so I think it's extremely advantageous that people really take a look at Fanbase and understand the opportunity that's in front of them. Because then you have advocates, you have people that actually support content creators that can actually own equity in a platform that they use. And a lot of people, there are quite a few people that have invested in Fanbase and already made back money that they've invested in Fanbase by using the app. And that's remarkable because it's doing the job it's supposed to do.
Very interesting. Now, I know TikTok has been in and around the news a lot recently, and Kevin, you've been very involved in that discussion in the news cycle. Just a fun stat: since the TikTok ban that was in place, that helped Fanbase dramatically. I think almost $4 million was raised by the company since that ban was put into effect, and then obviously delayed. But Kevin, what is it that got you just interested in this space and looking at a TikTok purchase? What is it about the social media space as a whole that, as from an investor standpoint, people should be looking at?
Well, I would go back up to 30,000 feet and go back maybe 3 years ago, just pre-pandemic. I have over 54 private company investments in all 11 sectors of the economy. And we know pretty well, these are private, so what matters is revenue and free cash flow in each case. So we have a pretty good idea of where the pain points are in each business, no matter if it's insecticide or commercial kitchens for airlines or wireless charging. They have two challenges always. How do they acquire new customers? And they call that CAC these days, customer acquisition cost. And how do they best spend their advertising dollars, ROAS, return on ad spend? Those are two metrics that have become within the nomenclature of every sector of the economy now. I don't care if you're Nike, you care about that. And social media in the last 3 years is the fastest growing spend for acquiring customers and maintaining communities. And so what's very difficult to do with and I think Fanbase has achieved that, is to get some kind of critical mass to actually form a community that advertises to itself effectively. It says, look, this platform, I'm a creator on this platform, and I monetize on it. And it's worth my time when I get up in the morning and spend my 18 hours a day doing whatever I do, because this is a giant digital community that has choices. It can go to any social media site, TikTok included, or Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn even, or X, whatever, and monetize their business, grow their business, form a community, and figure out a way to live off it. It's actually turning into the fastest growing part of the economy in job creation. And even Congress has started to notice it, because the market caps of these companies are over $1 trillion. So you have to try and find, from the investment perspective of this deal, if you can catch the wave early enough and it continues to get scale, because it's like almost like a supernova. It creates its own energy. At some point, there's the critical mass tipping point. And I think that's kind of the story here, and why it's, now whether or not TikTok makes a difference, it may go dark on April 5th. We don't know. But this is achieving success while TikTok's still around. So every social media platform, if TikTok gets shut down, it'll be jump ball for users. So you want to have some level of critical mass the day that occurs, if it occurs, and nobody knows for sure what's going to happen here. But it does show you the importance of building a community where people trust the platform regarding their personal information and their ability to monetize it, because that's what got TikTok in trouble in the first place.
And I think that's something that Fanbase has obviously taken to another level by turning their users into investors, right, through the equity crowdfunding solution. Isaac, talk to us a little bit about this, the brands that is Fanbase, and how big that community is, and just how strong that community is, given everything that you've done in your guys' past.
Yeah, so we have over 1.4 million users on the platform. A lot of those came in January just because of that brief ban, and it's brought our MAU up to over 600,000 in January. And so it's really brought a lot of attention to the platform and introduced people to options. I think another thing that really is attractive for Fanbase is the ability to migrate your content. We built something called a content migrator. So that's the ability to take all of your content, up to 1,000 posts from either Instagram or TikTok, and import them over to Fanbase. So it takes your profile picture, your information, your links, everything, and up to 1,000 posts, and brings them into Fanbase. So you're not starting from scratch. And another thing that's really attractive about that is Fanbase has a functionality we call tipping, which is giving love, right? And so you can like something on Fanbase, which is absolutely free. But if you want, you can purchase this digital currency called love and tip people. And so from that perspective, you've instantly put all of your content in a position for it to be monetized, and people can do that. And I think what people will realize is that humans are transactional. We're generous. We will show support and we will spend money on content that we do appreciate. And I think even a penny at a time, which a Fanbase user receives 50% of that revenue, can add up, because again, a penny doesn't seem like much until 1 million people give you one, right? And then it adds up. And that's just even where we are right now on the platform as we continue to scale. Just posting content, just regular posts, allow people to tip you, allow people to support you. And support is an important part of becoming a content creator. And so the brand of Fanbase is super inclusive. I built this platform to actually be a successor to the legacy platforms that exist, because I feel that I feel like no social media platform is immortal in the sense of relevance, because kids are always going to be on platforms that their parents are not on. And so as soon as my mom got on Facebook, I left Facebook and went to Instagram. And I have a 19-year-old brother who is nowhere on Instagram, because younger people are going to migrate away from older audiences. And so what happens is platforms capture that audience, like TikTok, young kids, and then it starts to trickle up into the older generations, and then that becomes too saturated, and then the audiences start to look for somewhere else to go. So Fanbase is a great alternative in a way that I think I see the vision of what social media is going to be, especially with content. This is something that I said even the last couple of days. I feel like that people are consuming content through large social networks rather than traditional television, right? And I feel like in the future, the way that people consume content is going to be through platforms like YouTube, like Instagram, like TikTok, and whoever owns the infrastructure of those platforms that distribute that content have the ability to be trillion-dollar companies. Now that remains to be seen, whether or not that is for Fanbase. But as Kevin mentioned, you have platforms like Meta, which are like $1.7 trillion, right? And so it's really a great opportunity to try to build something disruptive, inclusive, and for every single person.
We have questions from the crowd already rolling in here. And Kevin, there's one specific for you here that I think is somewhat relevant to what we were just talking about. And you talked about some of these key terms previously when you were speaking, but what are 3 things that you look for when you're investing in social media companies?
I'm looking, number one, for scale. I mean, have they proven their reason to exist? Have they found their niche and they're growing it? So, there's a lot of social media startup ideas out there. There's probably 30, 40 decks floating around. 99% are going to fail. And sometimes it's just serendipitous luck that gets one off the ground. But I don't want to invest in an idea for social media because the probability of success is too low. I'd rather catch the wave after the platform has established its community and it's proven that it has a right to exist, so to speak. Because then the only challenge is, does the CEO have the executional skills along with their team to pour gasoline on the fire? Because once you understand why people come to you, your job is to get more of them. That's it. So you don't have to worry about, do I have to prove this idea out, as has been tried so many times. This idea works, and we have over 1 million followers using the platform. Now we want to get to 100 million. How do we do that? And if you believe that the executional skills exist, then as an investor, all you're doing is saying, go execute. Doesn't mean they'll do it properly or they won't have to pivot, but it's a whole lot more attractive than rolling the dice saying, does this idea even have a chance of existing? And that's why it's way better to pour gas on the fire in social media than it is to try and start from scratch.
And Isaac, it sounds obviously, based on what Kevin just said and the community that you've already built up, that you've conquered that initial challenge.
Yeah. I bootstrapped the original MVP of Fanbase with my own money. I spent about $200,000 to build the original MVP. And I felt that alone would leave, some questions, actually give some people an opportunity not to say no, because it's a lot harder to prove a concept on a bunch of PDFs or a deck rather than something that you can download, use, see the functionality, see that it actually works, and prove the model. And we actually spent a good amount of time making sure that will people pay for content using in-app purchase capability? And we did that. And once we knew that people would, and we started seeing that younger people absolutely do, then that got me excited, because now I have a community of people that can join Fanbase like I might have been on MySpace 25 years ago or 20 years ago, and have those users for 20 years until we become the old guy at the social media club, and then some other platform comes along, and it will evolve as a company. But I think it's absolutely advantageous for us to be able to scale, as we have a proven model, we have a community, and we have the opportunity for longevity in social media, because young people and especially Black culture absolutely drive the narrative and the conversation of social media. So now you have a really long lifespan, a long runway to execute.
Isaac, what kind of partnerships is Fanbase leveraging right now?
Oh, well, one of the things that we're really looking into is creative ways to actually do advertising. Advertising is a huge part of social media. And one of the things that I talk about not actually interfering with the user experience is partnering with brands. So brands are able to create partnerships with Fanbase to market and promote their concepts, even through audio, with something we call brand audio on the web. And so we took our audio rooms, right, and we put them on the web, and that accomplishes a really good task. Number one, it allows a lot more people to listen to the conversation online, because it's available on your laptop, it's available on your phone without even having to download Fanbase. But then it also creates the opportunity to advertise, create call to action buttons, create opportunities for people to engage and create events and moments. So we've been partnering with brands to be able to create that type of opportunity. So for instance, the ability for a brand to come on board and talk about a release and give people early access to things that they would not get. It creates this kind of FOMO about audio, because you missed the conversation that happened on Fanbase where people were talking about something that you really wanted to be a part of, or talk to the creator or the producer of a film. We've had a couple documentaries actually do things on Fanbase in audio. So our brand partnerships is really what we focus on for that. And then we have HBCU partnerships. We partnered with Apple's Propel for HBCU students right here in Atlanta, Georgia. And I think that's also critical, because it gives an opportunity for young people to get a look inside of a tech company, to actually touch and be a part of something and understand what's going on under the hood, and inspire them to build great things and great products and great software as well.
I think we need to get Mr. Wonderful a Fanbase account so he can do his guitar jam sessions for the public and get some tips flowing in his direction. I think, Kevin, you probably would like that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I wanted to ask Isaac, by the way, I said this earlier before we went live, I'm a huge fan of Isaac Hayes. The album from way back, I think it was in the late 60s.
What you're talking about.
Yeah, I still have it on vinyl, and the reason it's crazy, I just played it a couple of nights ago for my kids. They went nuts. They loved it. And so it just shows you everything old comes back again. So here it is. But I wanted to make sure that you, maybe if you can, I don't know about the quiet period, talk about how Fanbase makes money for Fanbase.
Yeah, so how Fanbase makes money is we receive 20% of all revenue of in-app purchases, right, that come through. So every person, and that adds up, per user, that gives us an opportunity. Users receive 50% of the revenue, Fanbase gets 20%, but also there's the ability to also do these transactions online on the web, right? And when you're on the web, that increases our rev share to 50% of what comes through the door of any creator. So we have this online ability for creators to monetize that way, and Fanbase receives 50% of the revenue. And then on platforms like Google Play and the App Store, we receive 20% of that revenue. But again, when you're thinking of scaling this to tens of millions to hundreds of millions of users, that's a lot of opportunity for revenue as well. And then the in-app purchase part of even purchasing those loves, that digital currency, the way to tip, that's also. And then again, once we find and really build creative ways to make advertising possible without interrupting the user experience, that adds another layer of monetization. And then there's some other things that are built underneath that we haven't talked about for in the future for other ways for the company to really make a large amount of money revenue just based on the way that we pay creators and how creators get paid, creative ways to do that as well.
Kevin, as an investor, what excites you about the expanding social economy, and what kind of opportunities do you see within this space right now?
It's growing faster than traditional media. In some cases, significantly faster. You always want to go as an investor to where the advertising dollars go. I mean, you got to look at it this way. You got over 300 million consumers domestically. They're awake maybe 14 hours a day. How many minutes of their eyeball time do you get, and where do they go? Because that's where the advertising dollars go to acquire them as customers. And we look at this data every Tuesday. We use every single possible form of media to advertise, from traditional, linear television to streaming services to every single social media platform that can prove to us, a low CAC and a high ROAS. And so we're constantly looking. And so I just look at each Tuesday, what percentage of the spend of the aggregate companies across all 11 sectors is going where? And there's no question about it. I don't care who you are, if you're an S&P 500 company or you're just a startup selling insecticide. Digital spend, which used to be maybe 20% 7 years ago, is 50% now, and maybe going higher. When companies spend more than $50,000 a month, they tend to use remnant streaming and television for a portion of it. If they're under $50,000 a month, it's practically all digital. So Facebook, Google, Fanbase, TikTok, and whatever is working for them, whichever has the lowest CACs. You can watch this like an ocean of capital moving around, and it's huge dollars. It's huge dollars. And so, if you're just a traditional investor and you want exposure to this portion of the economy, you have to find companies like Fanbase and put them in your portfolio, along with other ideas too. But as I said earlier, you want it slightly de-risked. Did they prove they can get 1 million, people engaged on the platform? Doesn't mean they monetize all 1 million, but the fact that they have 1 million means there's no reason they can't have 100 million unless they screw it up. That's how it works. That's how traditionally it works. Whatever got the first 1 million should be able to get the next 99. You just need executional skills.
And on that point, Isaac, one of the questions coming in from the audience is, how is Fanbase going to achieve that velocity, that growth velocity that Kevin's mentioned? What are the plans?
Well, one of the things that we're focusing enormously on is retention. Retention is really, the key to scaling a community. Is once you find that perfect recipe of what holds people on a platform longer, like what Kevin was speaking about earlier, is like, how long do people stay on these platforms? This is a battle for people's attention and eyeballs. Like, the average person spends about between 30 to 36 minutes a day on Fanbase, right? And the amazing part about that is that's up there with platforms like YouTube, up there with platforms like Instagram and TikTok. I think audio is a real big addition to that holds people, because people are sitting on the platform all day having these audio conversations. And so we're looking for that sweet spot of retention. So those are things that the functionality that people want, the functionality that people are used to, and then also being innovative, like really creating great product. But once you nail retention and got it, now you can market, because you know that no matter who comes in your platform, you're going to keep a percentage of those people regardless, because you got that retention recipe that just you rinse and repeat. You keep doing over and over and over again, and that allows you to scale. So right now, especially these next 2 quarters, as we close this raise, we're going to continue to focus so much and just really making retention super, super high.
Amazing. And I guess, Kevin, Isaac, first with you, where do you see your industry going in the next couple of years? I know there's a lot that's going to be going on in the next couple of months, but just in the next 2-3 years, where do you see your industry developing?
I think that people are wanting to consume content in a non-traditional manner, right? I think people just sitting in front of a screen and watching content is not how we consume content now. Now we want to have a little bit more immersive experiences. We want to be able to chat while we're watching the program. We want to be able to send this with our friends. We want to be able to take it with us where we go. And so I think that a lot of media companies are really going to focus their attention on social media platforms to distribute their content, because a lot of these platforms, legacy platforms, are struggling to retain the attention of people. Like when you get to younger users, right, between the ages of, like, let's say 13 to 24 years old, right, the younger generation, they're spending about 7% of their time watching traditional television. When you get up to like 35 and up, it's like 45%. So younger people are moving away from traditional television and they're spending their time watching content, shorter versions of content. I always say that, like, the TV guide of today is your DMs, right? You no longer have to surf the internet anymore or surf online with what you want to watch. Your friends send you the things that you like. And so I think this community-based sharing of content and consuming content is how we're going to, watch and use content in the future. And so that's what I love about Fanbase, because once you build the community, the functionality, depending on whatever media is there, and there's other media out there to get, there's podcasting, there's other things that can be incorporated into a community. And once we have that, again, the sky's the limit on what we can pull in and actually build the way that we distribute content. Again, whoever owns the platforms that distribute the content, right? So whoever owns a piece of the YouTube, a piece of the Instagrams, a piece of the TikToks, right? You're putting yourself in a position to have an opportunity to own part of a platform that can scale, because I don't see any other way that people are going to consume content other than through large social networks with their friends.
Kevin, how about you? Anything that maybe Isaac didn't mention there that you also see on the horizon over the next couple of years within this space?
I see a continuation of ad dollars going to social platforms. I don't see that trend stopping. It's one of the greatest challenges for linear television right now. I mean, everything's driven by ad dollars. Everything's driven by can you attract capital that people want to invest in your platform to sell their product or service? And that's the whole deal. That's what made television what it was for over 100 years. And the fact that those ad dollars are pursuing other platforms at an ever increasing rate, not because they're experimenting, they're looking at it from the perspective of returns. So when you invest the $50,000 a week or whatever it is you're doing, and you're getting a 3.5 ROAS, that's pretty hard to get on television. So you continue to do it until you burn it out. And there's a lot of movement and flushing around, and people try to change their messages. And, I think Isaac mentioned this earlier, you don't know what goes viral. It's impossible to do that. But there's so much technology now, we haven't even touched on AI, that is now being applied to creating content that may be more viral as a result of just being more interesting to watch. And certainly our companies are doing that. They're all investing in that. Matter of fact, this tomorrow night I fly down to Miami just to deal on this topic, to try and forecast ad spend by platform for the rest of this calendar year. And it's a lot of money. And we're just looking, we're kind of, we're not emotional about it. We're just using analytical tools that we pay for, dashboards that we pay for, that scan for results. We were watching this during the election. What platforms were working, and kind of tagging along with those digital spends. So this is a really, really big space, and it's not a small, idea anymore. It's a huge idea, and I kind of agree with Isaac that my kids don't watch TV, period. Like zero. So they get their content many different ways, and move around until they find a community that they want to be part of. And they're fickle. And so you have to keep your chops up. You got to keep serving up what works. And there's lots of competition, but getting the first million, that's impossible. Once you have that, the rest is execution. I've said it 3 times.
Yeah. And Fanbase has it. They already have the first million. So that's a major milestone to clear. Well, guys, I just want to thank both of you for your time and thoughts today. I think it's been a really interesting discussion. It took us 29 minutes to mention AI, by the way. That was probably the first.
I'm glad somebody did it, but I'm sure, Isaac, you have a whole story on that if we had to get into it.
Yeah. Well, great. So Kevin, thank you for your time. Isaac, thank you as well. Again, just a reminder for everybody, Fanbase has a live offering on Start Engine right now. You can, there's been a ticker scrolling at the bottom there, invest.fanbase.app. You can go there and learn more about the offering. But I just want to thank both of you again for your time, and I hope you both have a great rest of your day and a great week.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks everybody. Take care.